when we talk about globalization, there are three different types of globalization, and two that we really discuss heavily in AP Human Geography throughout the course. And one of those is globalization of culture. The second, if you're wondering, is going to be economic globalization. And then the third would be like a political globalization. But if you look at globalization, which we discussed, in most classes are going to discuss this in Unit 1, it is the interaction and integration among people, companies, and governments at a global level, right? So what I mean by this is that globalization actually facilitates the idea of placelessness that we just talked about. It challenges local customs. What I mean by challenges local customs is if you live in some tribal village in sub-Saharan Africa where you speak a language that literally no one else in the world is going to speak, then you can either go on living a lifestyle as maybe a hunter-gatherer or maybe a farmer, or you can pursue education and opportunity. How are you going to do that speaking a language that no one speaks? So what do? You go and you learn English. So then you can get on a computer and chase after opportunity that exists in the form of Western education, for example. So these are different ways that globalization of culture can lead to a challenge of local customs. Globalization can promote certain traits over others, like I just mentioned, the KPAL. Also, ethnocentrism, and imperialization. When we talk about ethnocentrism, we're looking at the idea that one cultural group might feel like their ethnicity is superior to others. Regardless of how you feel this way, or if you feel this way, many cultural groups kind of take Western culture or American popular culture as somewhat of an attack on their culture. For example, you think about cultural imperialization. Everyone in the world today wears jeans, which is a huge symbol of American culture. So is that bad? No. But why if the Chinese, for example, are giving up their kipao to wear American clothes? Not that that's happening, but that's kind of the point that I'm trying to make, is that globalization of culture kind of leads to us all being very similar. English, John David English. English is a worldwide lingua franca, correct? Well, a lingua franca is going to be a language that is used as like an intermediary language between other languages. So really, it's going to be yes, it is probably the best example of a global lingua franca, but I wouldn't use that terminology because English is not spoken everywhere in the globe. But I know what you're saying, and the answer to that question would be yes. Many people if I had a picture of the British Empire, the former British Empire, many people that used to live in places that were colonized by the British obviously will speak English. And then there are many others that, because of internet and Western opportunity, education, and entertainment, are speaking a lot more English. Ironically, one of the highest ranked English speaking countries in a recent study was Singapore, which is a small Asian microstate, and they're choosing to use English as even over some of their old dialects and old other official languages. There's a dialect there called Singlish, in other words, mixed between Singapore's native languages. I think Tamil was one, and Cantonese. I'm not 100% sure. I might be wrong about that. But yes, don't want to get too much into that and off topic, but absolutely. Folk and popular culture then. So far what we've looked at is kind of an intro to what culture is. But another way of classifying it besides material and non-material is going to be looking at folk and popular culture. So what I've got here is some of the basic characteristics of folk culture. Homogeneous. Well, what does this word mean? We're talking about a group of people who are more or less the same. All right. They're ethnically the same. They are religiously and linguistically the same. They might have the same basic ideas, or I guess ideals, when it comes to government, or when it comes to education, or when it comes to the work they do. Okay. Also, geographic isolation usually applies to a folk culture. The reason for that is because their culture is based in tradition. Tradition is usually an idea that, or I guess is usually a set of ideas that we don't want to change. So if something has always been done this way, we try to resist changing it up because why fix what's not broken? Art in a folk cultural group tends to be linked to a way of life. The economy in a folk cultural group tends to be linked to a way of life and also is dependent on the geography. There is whaling recently became legal again for a group of Native Americans that live along the, I want to say Northern California or Oregon, somewhere around that area. They have a culture that has economically been linked to hunting whales. And the United States banned the hunt of whales because whales in that area were apparently endangered. And so it really rocked the way these individuals in this Native American community would have lived. And so the point I'm trying to make here is the economy is linked to the way of life and is dependent on geography. You can't go anywhere else in the United States and hunt whales. You have to be along the coast where whales are going to be. And another thing that I wanted to point out, this little menu got in the way, but folk culture diffuses through relocation. We're going to look more at that in just a moment. Popular culture is kind of the opposite of all of these things. It is heterogeneous. So instead of being homogeneous, which means they're all the same, heterogeneous means that that culture is designed to appeal to everyone regardless of race, religion, and language. It's something that is designed to be bought and sold. The video game I was just now telling you guys about at the beginning of this presentation is all the characters in there speak Japanese or voiced by Japanese artists. I don't care. It's a fun game, right? It's not. That's not the point of the game. Linkin Park was really cool whenever I was in high school, and in my mind, it's still really cool now. And Linkin Park had a huge fan base in Japan. I remember seeing one time a concert, like a recording on YouTube of a concert that they had done in Japan, and all of the people there were singing the song. They were singing the words to "In the End." That's how far back I go with Linkin Park. But they were singing in English. They may or may not actually speak English. Okay. This part here about popular culture being designed to be bought and sold, I think is really probably the single biggest key to differentiating between the two. American music, American clothing, textbooks that we buy into for education, AP exams and AP courses. Are all these things have a money value to them. All these things are a part of really a popular culture. Usually when we think about popular culture, we think about things like music and sports, video games. These are all going to be things that have a price tag and are designed in some way to make money. Popular culture also spreads far and wide, all right, across region to region, across the whole country, and even intercontinental. I just mentioned K-pop a little while ago. Has anybody ever listened to K-pop or heard of K-pop or know what that is? In a strange roundabout kind of way, it's based on American culture that was kind of diffused over in Asia. They made it kind of their own thing and now are kind of rediffusing it back into other parts of the world. Right now, Korea is probably the leading cultural force in East Asia. It used to be Japan. Gangnam Style is K-pop. I don't know. I didn't say that for sure. I don't know if you guys remember that song, but Gangnam Style. Yep. I'm done with that. So another thing too about popular culture is that it facilitates Western ideals and is secular. What we say by secular is worldly. It doesn't adhere to any kind of religion, and it diffuses through expansion. I don't know if you guys have ever gotten the AP Human Geography AMSCO book, the review book. It's a really good review book. I think it's probably currently the very best and one of the most highly recommended by AP Human Geography teachers. I know that the people I've spoken to really love this book. But this is a page taken out of there that kind of re-summarizes some of those concepts we just looked at between folk and popular culture. And really, we just about said all this stuff. The only thing we didn't mention is over here where we looked at buildings and houses and food. Again, look, locally produced with folk culture, materials for houses are locally produced. There's a geographic, spatial connotation to this. As a matter of fact, I do. As a matter of fact, I do. John David L. Just a second. I got the book right here. That is on page 97. Page 97.